Good evening, fellow vapors. This is Cass, back at you with another review, but today is not a juice review. Today is a device review. I haven't done one in quite a while. I mean, I suppose I reviewed a tank and I've reviewed a few mods in the past, but this one caught my eye the minute I saw it. It took me a little while. I think it was released around the sort of TPD mark time, sort of May, June, July, but I finally managed to, a couple of weeks ago, get my hands on one, and I've been using it for the last couple of weeks, which is why this video is a little delayed from when it arrived. I felt like I had to use it quite a bit to get my head around it in order to produce this video. So let's get straight down to it. Today I'm going to be looking at the Aspire Gusto Mini. Now this is a very interesting device in that it is a pod cartridge device. So you've got pre-filled pods that contain a coil within them. They're filled with liquid and you pop the pod in and out. This is the device itself. It is tiny. There we go. Now, obviously, in a minute, I'll be doing a sort of up and close on it. But essentially, just to make it nice and simple, back comes off. There's your pod. Pod comes out. You can pop a new pod in. Pop the back on it. And away you go. That is it. This is an interesting device. It is made by Aspire. But as you probably noticed, just up in the top corner there, see that says powered by Element NS20 designer NIC SALTS. What Element have done is very, very interesting here, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit after the close-up section, but I'm not going to go into too much detail on that yet. Tell you what, let's have a little vape of it. We're going to go straight down to the close-up of this device. I'm going to talk you through the dimensions and everything, and we'll come back up. We'll have a look at it. We'll see what the pros and cons of this little device are, and I mean, it is absolutely tiny. It weighs nothing. It is so, so small. We're going to go down, we're going to have a look at this, and we'll come up, and I will talk in much further depth about it. Alrighty, so here we are, up and close with the Aspire Gusto Mini. This is the box that it comes in, classic Aspire box. And you notice up here in the top, you have the Element NS20 logo. Now, as we know, this is because Element have teamed up with Aspire to create this device. This is the box. Let's pop it open. Pop that off. And this is the device in all its shining glory. Let's put that to one side for a second. I will talk about that in a moment, obviously. And inside we have all the bits and bobs. Actually, to be fair, it's all paper. There is a spare drip tip in there, though, which is kind of cool. It's a slightly narrower drip tip if you wanted a slightly tighter draw on it, I believe. This is the device itself. It is 73mm high. I don't think that includes the drip tip, but I haven't measured it myself. It is 22mm wide, so it's a sort of standard 22, and it is 50mm deep, so side to side. On the front here, it is very simple. You have a button, you have a charging port. 5 clicks will turn this on, and you've got this little LED here, and I love this LED because it's tiny, really quite savagely bright. As far as charging, it is just straight through the USB port. There are no modes on this. There's no screens as such. To get into the device, you pop it open. Now this is where the pod will sit. As you can see, that is straight through to the drip tip, so your pod's going to clock in there, and you put the top back on. This is a nice clunk. I've been using this for about a week and a half now. This hasn't got any looser. It's never fallen off. It just clicks on. On the back we have what is it's like a juice level window, should we say. What they don't tell you is that this is also your airflow input. So if you ever hold your device like that, that's going to block your airflow off. You want to be holding it like so. So you can let this through, because through the juice level window, you've also got your airflow. But I'll show you those in a moment. Let's have a look at the pods, because without the pods, this thing is useless. So what I've got with me is Element were kind enough to send me a couple of boxes of pods. This is the thing here. Key lime cookie flavour this is. It is 2% nicotine or 20mg, so nice and strong. And this is a Gusto Mini pod. It is a 2ml capacity as per the TPD. So let's open it up, and this is your pod. You can see the juice in there. You can also see there's a coil here. And down at the bottom is the juice intake. Now, at the moment, to stop this coil getting over-soaked and just horrible in the box, what they've done is they've done a very clever little system for basically keeping the juice in the top section and preventing it get down to the bottom here. Now, it is going to be very hard to see, but can you see this sort of hole on the front here? Let me get to my needle nose tweezers. Just in here, that is your airflow, and that is accessed through that juice window I was showing you a minute ago. So to get one of these on the go, what we do, we have these two tabs down the bottom here. Now I will break this one open. So you pull on the tab until it snaps, and you pull on the other tab until it snaps, and then you hold it upside down. Now what you'll start to see is that juice. You see all those bubbles coming through? And that juice is going to start filling in, there we go, filling into the bottom of this hole. You don't want to bang this in the pod straight away. What you want to do with this is wait a couple of minutes. In the past, I've been priming it by putting my thumb over the airflow and just breathing in on it, just to pull the liquid through into it. But they say, you know, leave that for a couple of minutes just to soak in, just to settle, and get that coil nice and primed, because there really is no other way of priming the coil. You might think to yourself, well, 2 mil is not a lot. What do I do when I've emptied it? Well, whether you're supposed to or not, I have discovered, and you see that little white thing in the top there? This is a rubber bung that you can pull out. You can pull it out and you can refill these pods. Now, whether you're supposed to do that or not, I don't really know, but you can. And so far, I have had one of these key lime cookies, and I was also able to get my hands on some bottles of NS20 liquid, and I just refilled it. It was so easy. Now, I think these actually can hold about 4 mil of juice, because once you've got that, you've got most of the capacity of this left. And I've been filling it right to the top. The only downside is because that hole is simply the size of the nozzle of your bottle, it tends to flood the coil, forcing the air that way out. So do be a little bit careful, it can be a little bit messy. The coils in these are lovely. They seem to be some kind of bastardized Aspire BVC coil. I'm not really sure. I don't think you can replace them. In fact, I'm almost certain you can't replace them unless you pull this thing completely apart. But what would be nice is to have some empty versions of these, so I can fill them with my own juice and use it much as a tank, a standard tank, as opposed to this sort of refillable cartridge. Now, I do get the point of it. You just bang the cartridge in and away you go. So let's bring the mod back into play. And what happens is you line the bottom to the bottom and the top to the top. And I tend to go top in first and click it in over the top. Now you can, I don't know whether you'll be able to see it on here, you can just about see the juice level through that window, but there is a gap there. If you find you're breathing on it and you're not really getting much out of the top of it, it's probably that this isn't quite sat properly. So just check that and sit it properly. There is a technique to it. So it's almost like a little spring on the top there. So you pop it in, click it, back out again. Now I do have another one that I've been using for the last few days. Pop it back in and away you go. And this one's been refilled a few times. This one's honey roast tobacco. Oh, I want to change my flavour. Click it in, pop the back on, up the right way. Now the battery life on this so far has been very, very good. I've had to fully charge it from empty twice in about a week and a half, and I have been using it a lot. I've been using it in the car, I've been using it walking to and from the shops. I've even been using it whilst I'm at work. I've been using it quite a bit. Now I did have a top-up charge in the first couple of days, but then I did run it completely to empty, and you are looking at more than a full day's use. As far as juice usage, the juice you get in the pod absolutely gets completely caned through. I got through the first pod in about an hour. Now the idea being is it's strong nicotine, so you don't get through it so quickly. Once you get used to the NS20, doesn't matter, it's like any other juice. You just get a bit more of a nick hit. So thank God for being able to refill it with that little rubber bung. That pretty much covers the device. It is super light. I mean, as you can see, it fits straight in my hand like that. It weighs, in fact, it weighs 78 grams, which is nothing. It weighs absolutely nothing at all. It's lovely. It's tiny, it's discreet, it fits in your pocket. There's nothing to break. Pods are plastic, so nothing to smash there. If you're prone to breaking them, I would go for this. I'm not so convinced about the airflow being through that window. I'd rather it came out the bottom here. You have got some vent holes here, but I'd much rather the airflow was through, because I like to hold it in my hand and vape on it. I don't like having to consciously make sure my fingers are out the way so that I don't block the airflow up and I just don't get a good vape out of it. I think that about covers it for the up and close. That is the Mini Gusto, or Gusto Mini, whichever way you like to say it. Brilliant little cartridge device here. There are a couple of things I will talk about up in the top that I'm less than impressed with, but overall, spanking little device for someone that is starting, for someone that just wants to go back to the sort of the reason why they started vaping, and you know, have some high nick, have some good flavor, because this is a flavored device. It is really good for flavor. And yeah, I'll see you back up the top. Okay, we're back. So as you saw, it's an interesting pod device. It's not one that we've really seen much of. There are a couple of them out there, and you get a lot of these sort of all-in-one devices that you fill yourself, but very few that have come out that are high-end pod devices. Let's have a little vape on it again. I know I did just before the video, but then we're going to talk about how it vapes. We're going to talk about the nicotine salts, the way, the pros and the cons of it. Let's have a quick vape and we'll talk a bit more about it. It's a ripping vape, honestly. For such a tiny device, for something that you can both mouth to lung and sort of get a restricted direct lung on, it's spot on. It really is spot on. It's a really clean flavour. At the moment, I think I've got Key Lime Cookie by Element in here. So now when one of the blokes from Element spoke to me about this, they said essentially what they'd done is they'd engineered the nicotine molecule and they'd reduced its pH balance. And what that did is it means that you can have your high nicotine strength, in this case 20, the legal maximum that you can sell in the UK, and there's no throat hit, there's no real chest hit. I will admit there's a bit of a tickle in your throat the first time you use it, and that does make some people cough. If I use it first thing in the morning, it'll make me cough a little bit. But once you start using it, you get this really, really pure nicotine rush off of it. The flavour's spot on, really clean. The airflow is a bit of a bugbear of mine. Now, I think as I showed you in the close-up, the airflow is in the side of it, in this sort of juice window here. It is a pain in the arse that it was there. I'd much rather they'd somehow done it so that it came through the bottom. Because most of the time, you hold your device like this, and that blocks the airflow off under here. It blocks it off. So you've got to hold it like this. Other bugbears with it, let's get the negatives out of the way first. I think the battery life could be a little better. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've probably only charged it 3 or 4 times in a couple of weeks, but then I haven't been using it solely. If you bought this as someone with a device and this would be your only device, you're going to get through that battery pretty quickly. Refilling it is so easy. There's a little rubber bung in the top there that you can just pull out. I went over this obviously in the close-up. You can pull that out and you find the first few puffs after you filled it sort of quite juicy because of the way that the airflow and the vacuum, the pressure has worked inside it. It floods the coil, so you end up with a couple of juicy hits. Other than that, I can't fault it. The last 2 weeks, as I've been using it, haven't gone out of the house without it in my pocket. I don't even know it's there half the time. I pick it out, I have a couple of vapes, I pop it away again. You've got a lovely little LED on the front there. You can even see that on the camera. I mean, it's a tiny LED, but it's so bright you can see it. A couple of things I'd like to see from this, though, is I'd like to be able to get empty pods. Now, I'm not afraid of emptying it out, putting another juice in behind it, but it would be nice to have completely clean pods. Price point. So, price point of the device, everywhere I've seen it at the £25 mark. And that is just the device. You don't get any pods with that. And this is the bit that bugs me a little bit. Pods are very, very expensive. Now, this device is designed to take very high nicotine through it. You could probably refill it with a 3 or 6 milligrams. If you want to buy NS20 E-Liquid, it is $8.99 for 3 pods. That totals 6 ml of juice. That's expensive in anyone's books. Okay, you get the pod, you get the coil, and you do get the juice in there. But I finished my first pod before I refilled it in about an hour. That is not a lot for your money. And if you aren't someone who likes to faff around with refilling your pods, you're going to get through these like mad. You can, however, get most of Element's flavors. What would be good is to see other companies jumping onto that. But as far as I'm aware, this device is exclusive to Element e-liquids at the moment. Which isn't a bad thing. Obviously, they make phenomenal e-liquids, and you can get most of the range. I actually happen to have, for example here, the Element Far Candy Punch in NS20. So they do make a lot of their ranges, and if you do like Element and you know what Element are about, you know they cover most bases. You have your tobaccos, you have some of your desserts in the tonics range, you've got your fruits and your candies and all of that. It's all covered, so as long as you like Element, you're going to like this. But it's the size, it's the convenience of it, it charges via USB, there's no faffing around, it's press and go, it's easy to pull in and out. Sometimes I find there's a little bit of condensation on the inside of that if I've refilled it, and the coil does tend to flood if you refill it. I haven't had any problems at all. No button misfiring. I've dropped it, I must have dropped it like 10 times. Not even a scratch on this thing. I'd be interested though, and I haven't done it yet. I've probably used 2 or 3 out of the 6 pods that I was sent by Element. And they sent me 3 pods in the honey roasted tobacco and 3 pods in the key lime cookie. I've used 2 of the key lime cookies and I've used 1 of the honey roast tobaccos, but I haven't yet killed 1 of the coils, which is good. I'd be interested to see how long the coils do last, because you could use them in replacement for a normal tank as long as you don't mind faffing around refilling it. For the money, for an all-in-one device, and I think this is how vaping is going to be going. People aren't going to be going for the huge setups anymore. They're going to be going for the little devices, the ones that give them a really premium vape, a small outlay and a small size without all the faff. I mean, I can vape Element as well in this device with a huge nicotine hit as I can in any one of my RDAs. And all I've got to do is pop the pod in and out. If I want to change flavours, I just pop the pod out and I can pop a new pod in. There's no crossover. It's that easy. The charging cable, I mean, is about this long, so it's a standard USB cable, so use whatever one you think. Element teaming up with Aspire has been fantastic for this device, because Element have got their design and nicotine salts out, which even on their own, I mean, if you just went out and bought a bottle of this, I think it's like 6-7 quid a bottle. If you just bought a bottle of this, that's worth it, because A, it's strong, so you're not going to get through it quickly, and B, It's Element E-Liquid. The extra nicotine doesn't provide any strange taste either. You get that little tickle if you're not used to it, and believe me, if you're gonna have a chug on it, make sure you can sit down for a few minutes afterwards, because you do get a huge hit if you're not used to it. I know for me, when I was giving up smoking, the hardest cigarette to get rid of was that one after dinner in the evening. That was the hardest one. So for this, it's perfect because I get that huge nicotine hit straight away, and it feels to me like I'm replacing my cravings with this. And after all, that's what it's all about. It's about getting off the cigarettes. It's not just about the shiny toys and the fancy flavours. It is about getting off the cigarettes. I think that about wraps it up for the Aspire Gusto Mini. It's a phenomenal little mouth-to-lung / direct, like restricted direct lung device. USB chargeable. You're looking, I think it's like 900 mAh battery. It weighs nothing. It sits in your pocket and it tastes really, really clean. I'd like to thank April and Yaya at Element for sending this my way for this review. I'm sorry guys, it took me a little while to get this review out. I did want to use it for a little bit before I put it up. I really do appreciate it, and thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button, please hit that like button, and if you really did enjoy it, share it around, tell all your friends, and keep checking back for more videos. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.